Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I am going to be discussing 12 things you need to know before you buy Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This video is going to discuss everything from combat to exploration, customization and overall gameplay, plus much more, so make sure you stick through all the way to the end and watch the entire video. The objective of this video is going to be to show you some brand new gameplay footage, as well as hopefully help you guys who haven't decided whether to pick this game up or not come to a final conclusion. So with that out of the way, make sure you guys smash a big thumbs up on the video and feel free to subscribe if you are new to the channel for all Battlefront 2 and Jedi Fallen Order content in the future. Now, getting to the first thing, it is going to be talking about the combat, and the first couple of points I'm going to be making are going to be revolved around lightsaber combat and what we can expect in the game. So the first point I wanted to bring up is something that's new, and it's going to be finishing moves. This is something that I thought was really cool, and from what we can see in the gameplay, when you get your enemies down to a low amount of health, you will go into an animation which performs a finishing move. The gameplay does show off a few different cool moves where you'll flip over an enemy and do a finishing strike. There are multiple different ways of taking down enemies at the end, and I think this is a really cool feature. It's something that's going to be really rewarding when you do take down like the bigger boss battles, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but I think adding finishing moves to this gives you that satisfaction of defeating a really difficult enemy. When you go up against the likes of the Inquisitors, you know, the second sister and the ninth sister, finishing them off in a lightsaber duel is going to really make you want a finishing move at the end. You're going to want to make sure they know you've beaten them. You don't just want to be hacking and slashing away and them just drop to the floor. So having an animation that does do a finisher will be probably much more satisfying for all of the players. So that's point number one, and I think it's a really great addition to the combat. Moving on to point number two, and it's going to be talking about dismemberment. And this has been a big issue around Jedi Fallen Order where people weren't sure if there were going to be limbs cut off and things like that. They were begging for it. They wanted limbs to come flying off like you see throughout the Star Wars universe previously, but Jedi Fallen Order developers Respawn have basically come out and said there will be no human dismemberment in Jedi Fallen Order. But keep that in mind, guys, I did say human dismemberment. This doesn't mean you can't cut aliens in half, you can't cut creatures in half, because you absolutely can. Some new gameplay has come out where you do see them cutting like bug-like creatures and trolls and things like that, cutting limbs from them or just slicing them in half, and there's some really cool like aerial moves where you do like a strike from above type of move and cuts bugs in half. I think this is going to be really cool to see. So I'm kind of disappointed as well that there wasn't any human dismemberment, because that's kind of what a lightsaber does, but I am happy they have added it in for aliens and other creatures that are non-human. So that's what you guys can expect in terms of dismemberment for Jedi Fallen Order. Moving on to number three, we are going to talk a little bit about saber combat, and obviously during this game you are going to have multiple fights where you are going up against some of the big bad boss battles. A lot of people have seen now the ninth sister and also the second sister, that you are going to be coming up against them at some point. And we do have some gameplay footage of the ninth sister in action and Cal taking her on, and she looks like she's going to be a very tanky, difficult enemy to defeat, so there is going to be a lot of skill involved with taking these enemies down. And there are going to be different difficulties. We will also talk about that in just a minute, but some things you will notice throughout the gameplay is there are lightsaber clashes similar to Battlefront 2015, where you do have to spam a certain button to get out of that clash, or at least win the clash. So that's something we didn't know before, and I think it's a good addition. Also, you're going to have a very different fight style to what you're used to. Those of us that have played a lot of Battlefront 2, the lightsaber combat is 1,000 times different. You're not going to be able to just go in there and button mash away and swing. This is going to take a lot of different elements to defeat these enemies. You're going to have fast strikes, you're going to have heavy strikes, you're going to be dodging and rolling, moving around your enemies. You're going to have your enemies perform moves on you that are unblockable that you will have to dodge out of the way of. And if you ever see them glowing red, that's what that is. So that's a sign to get out of the way. But that's something else that's going to add a different element. I've seen a lot of people that have actually gotten hands-on with the game and played it, saying that it's very similar to the way the Dark Souls combat works, which is one of the most difficult games to progress through if you've ever played it, but it is like a toned down version of Dark Souls. So it's not going to be quite that difficult, but it definitely has a lot of similar elements in terms of combat. Now, bouncing straight off combat, number four is talking about movement, and this is going to combine kind of the fighting movement as well as the game movement when you're just playing and moving through levels. There is going to be elements of both in this part. So the first thing I'll talk about is a little bit more of the combat side of movement, and I did touch on it just now. So there's going to be a lot of dodging and rolling and jumping over your enemies. You can double jump when you're in fights as well. So there's a lot of different features that you're going to have to use to win some of these more difficult battles. In terms of gameplay and progressing through the map, you're going to have a lot of things like wall running, double jumping, traversing certain obstacles, sliding down hills, rolling. There's a whole bunch of movement that you are going to be doing throughout Jedi Fallen Order, and I think this is great. It gives a lot of different dimension to the game. I've seen people make comparisons to Tomb Raider and a whole bunch of other games that do require a lot of tactical thinking, whether in terms of moving through maps. So you need to wall run here, jump off that, swing on this rope, get to a platform, then jump off that platform and double jump to get to another one. So there is going to be a lot of different levels in terms of the movement when you're just progressing through each planet. So that pretty much summarizes most of the movement you're going to have to deal with. Obviously, once we get hands-on with the game, we'll know a lot more about it, but this is just kind of what I've gathered so far from the gameplay. Moving on to number 5 though, we are going to be talking about boss battles. And yes, I did touch on a couple of them before. You're going to be taking on the 9th sister and hopefully the 2nd sister at some point, which I'm assuming you would do because they haven't actually said they won't, and it wouldn't really make sense if they didn't. They've advertised her in every trailer so far, so you have to come up against her at some point. But not only do you take on the Inquisitors, you also take on multiple other enemies like giant trolls and this really cool looking temple guard. And I'll slot some gameplay here in the background that you guys can watch of Cal taking on this weird looking temple guard thing that kind of has a different moveset. He's very slow but very powerful at the same time, and it seems as though he can shoot some kind of energy out of his feet and his hands, and you have to knock basically his heart or his energy source out of his chest, and then from there you can take him down. You can get more critical strikes once you've done that. So it seems like that's going to be the main way to defeat him, but at the same time you've got to be very careful not to take strikes from him because they will cause a lot of damage. Moving on from boss battles though, we are going to be talking a little bit about the progression system because everybody loves a good progression system, and anyone that started with the Battlefront 2 progression system wasn't a big fan. So we're going to talk about something called a skill tree, and if you don't know what a skill tree is, that is where you level up, and each time you get a skill point you can unlock a different ability or trait on your skill tree. This one is going to have everything from new abilities, new moves, to bonuses in health and force ability. It's going to have a very deep skill tree, and there are going to be a lot of options on there, which I'm very excited for. I've seen a few people make comparisons to like Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Those type of skill trees in game were very helpful, and they progressed and made your character a lot stronger in terms of combinations and different skills and abilities that you can use. From what I've heard as well, you're going to be going to different planets, and I will touch on those more towards the end of the video, but there are going to be certain planets that are more difficult from others, and having leveled up to a certain degree, so you've got certain abilities or amounts of health and force, they're going to help you on specific planets. And we're going to talk about one in a minute that does get mentioned in a lot of videos that we didn't know was in the game before. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the end so you can hear about that one. Anyways, moving on, like I said, with the skill tree, it's going to be very difficult to get through certain maps, and that brings me around to number 7, which is difficulty settings. There are 4 different difficulty settings in Jedi Fallen Order. There is the standard story mode, there is Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, and Grand Master. So if you really want to test yourself, you can slot it in at Grand Master and take on the hardest of enemies, or if you just want to speed run through the game and see the storyline as quick as possible, you can play on story. I think personally the first time I play through it, I might play on Jedi Knight and then look to test myself in Jedi Master and Grand Master following that. But I think I definitely want to get through the story, but not have it feel too easy. Do you know what I mean? And according to the devs, the difficulty settings are going to have a lot of factors that they change in terms of parry timing, block timing, dodge timing. A lot of that sort of combat comes more difficult with the higher level of difficulty setting you're playing on. So that's something to keep in mind when you're choosing which difficulty setting you want to play on. Another feature that is encapsulated within difficulty settings is number 8, and that is in-game puzzles. There are going to be puzzles throughout the levels that are going to stop you from progressing unless you can solve them. These become more difficult again with each difficulty setting that you bump up. So if you're in Grandmaster, some of these will test you, and a lot of the people that have played the game already had said at the event that they needed to ask developers where to go or what they needed to place where in order to solve some of these puzzles. So it's very similar to Tomb Raider in terms of in order to get to the next part of the map, you need to solve something, and you're actually going to have to use your brain a little bit, which for me is going to be very difficult because I don't do a lot of that at all. So I hope I can get through these in-game puzzles as easy as possible, which is probably another good reason I'm going to be playing on Jedi Knight the first time through. Moving on from puzzles though, we are going to talk about map exploration, and there is apparently a pretty linear story so far. From what I've heard of the people that have played it, they got to play about 3 hours, and they said yes, it was linear, but at the same time there are hidden tracks and rooms and places you can go where you can find different crates that will unlock things for your characters. Some of these crates can contain new BD BD1 skins, new skins for the Stinger Mantis, lightsaber parts, and new outfits for Cal, as well as other bits and pieces. So that's really cool, and we'll talk about customization again at number 11. So if you guys are waiting for that, that is going to be coming very shortly. But this is a cool thing. I think that being able to explore the map a little bit more than just having a straight line story gives you something to search for. And apparently one of the game changers that played the game said that they went through an entire planet and got to the end and back to the planet select screen, and they had only completed 30% of what there was to explore. So it seems like it's very deep. There's a lot of different sections that they can go through, and it's going to be a really long storyline. If you want to 100% this game, it is going to take multiple hours. So I'm very excited because I do plan on playing this a few times through, and it's going to keep me entertained for a long time. Anyways, moving on from map exploration, let's talk a little bit about the characters. We have some new characters as well as some familiar faces. Obviously, Cal is going to be our main protagonist, and he is going to be the Jedi that we are playing as, and he is in training underneath a lady called Seer, who is a former Jedi from the Jedi Temple who escaped and went into hiding, and she's kind of going to act like your mentor character throughout the game. You're also going to be accompanied by a little droid named BD1, which is going to help you throughout the gameplay in getting through maps, as well as in combat. He can actually heal you, which is a really cool feature. If you start to run low on health, you can have him give you like a little stim of an extra bit of boost in health, and that way you can keep taking on enemies if you start to get low. So that's a cool feature as well, and going to be the main couple of roles for BD1. Again, some of the enemies we will play against, like the second sister and the ninth sister, as well as any of the other Inquisitors that may pop up. Hopefully we see a few more, and then you're going to meet some familiar faces like Saw Gerrera, who is of course from Rogue One. If you haven't seen anything on him, make sure you go watch Rogue One, because he does come into this a little bit in the story, and one of the first gameplay trailers that we did get showed him off a little bit as well. So that's a little bit on characters. I'm sure there's 100 more characters that we're going to be introduced to when the game does release, but these are the main ones for now. I really hope to see Vader in there at some point as well, but I'm not going to get my hopes too high. Maybe towards the end of the game. Who knows? Moving on to number 11 though, and we are going to talk about customization. And this is something that a lot of you guys were interested and curious about. I can guarantee you that you're going to be very impressed. There is customization options for Cal, where you can change his clothing. BD1 has customization options where you can change the color of his actual appearance. And the Stinger Mantis, which is going to be the ship that you fly around in, is also going to be able to be changed. There is a pre-order bonus for anyone that does pre-order the game that gives the Stinger Mantis a different skin, and that's going to be included with your pre-order. Now, this is the big thing in terms of customization, and the one I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with, and that is the customization of your lightsaber. Yes, that is right. Everybody wants to make a custom lightsaber, and everybody wants it to look epic. Well, this takes customization to another level, where you can customize the emitter, the switch, the sleeve, and also the color of your lightsaber. And if you don't know what all of those first three mean, I will have an image up on screen for you guys that shows off kind of where you're going to be looking at in terms of customization. One thing, and obviously the main one that everyone is worried about, is changing the color. With the pre-order bonus, you get an orange lightsaber color, and people that have played the game have also confirmed that you will get the blue that we see in throughout all the gameplay, and also you have the option to find green lightsaber crystals. So it doesn't actually go any deeper than that. We haven't found anything out yet, but I'm really hoping there's like white and all the other colors that you can imagine, yellow. If you can find those throughout the map, that will be epic and a really good step for customization. That's the biggest thing that everybody wants. They want a fully customizable lightsaber, and that is what they're giving us. You can customize every part of this lightsaber and make it completely your own, all the way down to the color, which I think is very cool. So the customization in this game is quite deep, and I'm looking forward to making my own lightsaber. Now, last but not least, we are going to touch on the planets. And of course, we have seen from some gameplay that you will have a planet selection screen when you are inside the Stinger Mantis, and it will be completely smooth transition. There won't be any loading screens when going to a new planet. You'll have an animation where the pilot and also Seer go and sit down in their seats and tell you to sit down in your seat, and then you will be transported into hyperspace where you find the next planet. We know there are a couple of planets confirmed so far: Kashyyyk, Zepho, and more recently Dathomir was confirmed. That's right, the home planet of my favorite Darth Maul is going to be visited in Jedi Fallen Order, and that's a level that has been told by the devs to be quite a bit more difficult, so you're going to want to level up a little bit more and get further on your skill tree before visiting this planet, because it can be quite quite difficult. I'm excited to get there and see what sort of storyline this planet holds. Maybe we'll see some surprise appearances, Night Sisters, Night Brothers, you know, those kind of characters. I think that would be really cool, and I'm excited to get into that gameplay as well as the other planets. Right now, I know there's been 4 confirmed planets, and you can see that in the gameplay. There is 4 available to be selected, but I really hope there's going to be more as well. Even if each planet is going to go for a couple of hours, I would love to see more than just 4. Now, with all of that out of the way, hopefully you guys have a better understanding of Jedi Fallen Order and what to expect, and hopefully I've convinced a few of you guys to pick up a copy of the game if you were unsure previously. Anyways, let me know down in the comments what you are most excited for in Jedi Fallen Order, and I will leave you guys right here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you always.
This